What is your biggest non-academic, non-work-related accomplishment? My old band got played on a local radio station a few times.
When I was a kid, I saw a guy passed out drunk on the side of the road. Neither of my parents noticed, so I said something. We went back and my dad went to check on him. It was around 20 degrees Fahrenheit out and he was wearing a thin jacket and pajama pants. My dad, who is a paramedic, told me I quite possibly saved his life that night. Edit. Worded weirdly.
Not that exciting, but I'm still pretty proud, winning a blue ribbon at a state fair for my strawberry jam. My husband loves to brag about it, and it makes me feel pretty special when he does.
Relearned how to walk after my brain injury.
Saved a lady from drowning at the Outer Banks about 10 years ago.
My stroke recovery. I can walk, use my left hand, and I can cook again. Things aren't perfect, but considering that I couldn't pick my head off of the pillow the day after last Christmas, I am doing fantastic.
One time when I was a kid, I was chasing my sister around the house with a wiffle ball bat, you know, like how kids do. She took off up the stairs to the second floor and tried to lock herself in the bathroom at the top of the stairs. As she was slamming the door shut, I threw the wiffle ball bat like a javelin and it blocked the door from closing. This happened 30 years ago and it was literally the most athletic I have ever felt in my life until I ran a mile non-stop as a 44-year-old guy.
I was sexually abused by a priest dozens of times during a 7-year stretch of my childhood. I blocked all the memories, read as, drank away the memories, but when I was around 23, I had a conversation with someone which caused them to resurface. I spoke to a lawyer to see if there was anything I could do. The criminal statute of limitations, 2 years from the time the abuse ended or 2 years from the victim's 18th birthday, was long gone, so I ended up filing a civil lawsuit. He was removed from the priesthood and we settled out of court. As it turns out, he did the same thing to more than 75 other little boys during an 18-year span. But because I spoke up and did something, the statute of limitations for sexual crimes against minors in the state of Illinois was eventually removed. I don't know if that counts or not, but I'm pretty grateful that what I went through wasn't completely for nothing.
Taught myself to crochet. I'm not terrible at it.
An artist at a major animation studio saw my fan art and shared it on their Tumblr. They commented on how funny they thought it was. That was years ago, but it felt great.
I moved to a foreign country where I knew only one person and didn't speak the language and managed to independently make it, and now I call it home.
I recently squatted 495 pounds. Felt like my soul was leaving my body.
I briefly became a published comic book author as a side hustle. My first issue sold out at a retailer level across the globe on day one. Super proud of that. Edit. Okay. Wow, this blew up. I just want to take a moment to thank every single person who took the time to express that they've heard of Dr. Crow, or better yet read it or purchased a copy before. You have no idea how much that means to me on a personal level. But on a professional level, one linked my publisher to this thread and they've now agreed to publish a collected edition of Dr. Crow. You read that, you, Seth literal salt. It's coming. I can't thank you folks enough for helping make this reality. It was literally you guys discussing Dr. Crow that will make a collected edition a reality. Thank you. This has happened extremely fast, so I can't provide more info right now. But if you'd like to try to keep up to date on info regarding the collected edition of Dr. Crow, give me a follow over and be sure to follow 215 and let them know you want more Doc Crow. Thank you so much for your support. You've made a bitter man extremely happy today.
Adopted my little sister, 16. When I was 21, after my father murdered my mother, helped her finish school and kept a room over her head till she was old enough to move out on her own.
I came across an overturned vehicle and some kids screaming driving from Oklahoma to California. Dead of night, winter, middle of nowhere. People weren't stopping, but I did. My ex-wife didn't want to stop, but I snapped at her. Turns out a girl had been thrown from a vehicle. Her legs were bent the wrong direction. Applied a makeshift tourniquet and got some blankets from my U-Haul. The truck driver stopped and helped me. He called for paramedics and I helped them carry her over the snow/ice.
I volunteer for an animal rescue. Last year, I vaccinated just under 600 cats and kittens. My only qualification is that I also shot a lot of drugs into myself in the 1970s.
I won the first Swedish nationals in indoor wingsuit flying. It's also so far the only nationals since the only tunnel is in Sweden, which makes it even sweeter. To be fair, there wasn't a lot of competition, only one other team that were close to us, but I guess being part of the sport early on is part of the accomplishment.
I'm 5 years clean from heroin at 25 years old. I was an addict from a young age, started with opioids at 16, and by the time I was 19 I was a junkie. Edit. Thanks for all the love, guys. If you know somebody struggling with addiction, please tell them to be safe. I will recommend seeing a psychiatrist for combination therapy with a counselor as a way to ease into rehabilitation.
Managed to strike out the gym teacher during a softball match.
Lost over 100 pounds to do an Ironman triathlon and also compete and place in a bodybuilding competition.
I made some friends this last year. Smile.
I held in a fart for like 3 hours, and when I let it rip, it lasted like 17 seconds.
I somehow survived 2018 despite having up to 70 seizures a day. I didn't even have a stroke. I am seriously hard to kill and it makes me proud. Edit. Yes, I have tried cannabis and CBD oil. Edit again. Please, for the love of God, people, stop asking me if I've tried the ketogenic diet or essential oils as well. I can only take so much.
I beat anorexia. It's not something I talk about off Reddit because labels are sticky and no one looks at you the same way after you mention having had mental health issues.
This one time I went to bed at a reasonable hour.
I ate a triple burrito in one sitting 10 years ago, for which I won a t-shirt. I still wear the shirt from time to time.
I stood up for myself with my family and set boundaries. Then I actually kept them. I had a very abusive and traumatic childhood. Standing up for myself when I was a child always resulted in pain of some kind. This was a huge step for me.
Running the table at pool where after the other person broke and I sank every single one of my balls and the 8-ball in one turn. I'm not usually good at pool. A stranger came up to me, said it was one of the greatest things he's ever seen. I think about this often, lol.
I convinced someone that I was interesting enough to date and then marry. 10 years in and he still has no clue he's been duped.
Growing veggies and herbs without killing them. And making pickles, jams, infused butter with the results. So that's pretty cool, I guess. Edit. Thanks for the awesome feedback and good luck to you all in your own efforts.
One time, I had my 3 kids and 3 more that I was babysitting all napping at the same time. IYKYK.
I am almost 1.5 years sober from drinking a bottle of whiskey a day. Thanks everyone for your support.
Learned and can play piano pretty well.
I've photographed every train station on the Cleveland subway, there are nearly 50, and am currently nearly halfway through photographing every station on the Chicago L. My photography is probably my proudest accomplishment since it's really the one thing I've done completely on my own terms. Edit. For those who want to see my photos, they're all available at
Getting out of bed in the morning.
Went from living in the homeless shelter to owning the homeless shelter to help other people get back on their feet like I did.
I saved over 100 cats in my lifetime and I feel happy thinking about it.
I beat a debilitating phobia that kept me from living my life. Beep, it's the first time I say it, and truly realize it. I was in therapy for 5 years before COVID stopped it all. And I'm as well without therapy. I didn't regress at all. The phobia hadn't come back and doesn't control me anymore. I don't need therapy anymore to stay afloat. I will go back to it once I'm fully vaccinated because it will still help. But it's not a necessity to survive anymore. I need to find a good way to celebrate that.
I walked and hitchhiked across the United States to escape the abusive community I grew up in, and rebuilt my life across a continent, against all odds, when by all respects I should have been dead by now, whether killed at the hands of someone in that old community, or by starvation or exposure. Now I'm in a position where I have a good job, am relatively stable, began writing again and am going to start making games again. Maybe even paint again, if I can get therapy to undo the damage that was done that took away my ability to. So there's that.
surviving a suicide attempt.
I saw a video on Adam Savage's tested YouTube channel all about tintype photography.
I got obsessed with light and lenses and photosensitive chemicals and decided I wanted to build a working large format camera to help me understand how it all works. So I did. No plans, no prior knowledge. Just researched what all the components were and designed and made them one by one.
My accumulation of meaningless internet points, obviously.
I left my abuser.
Losing 110 pounds, haven't reached fit. Don't really want to start exercising to try, but better than obese, I guess.
I have a second-degree black belt. I earned it when I was 14 or so 15, so it barely feels like my own anymore though. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Since getting my driver's license, I always drove automatic. I live in Europe, few years passed and I needed to go to UK. I rented a car with manual, so I learned how to drive manual in UK. For me it's impressive as I hadn't too much of experience driving stick and zero experience whatsoever on driving other side of the road. So yeah, achievement unlocked, new skill acquired, laughing face.
My stepkids removed the step portion of the label by asking me to adopt them as adults. They did the research to make sure it was doable, and I did all the paperwork on my own, and now I am dad of 3 rather than dad of 1.
Marrying my wife. I'll never accomplish anything better in any aspect of my life.
My D&D world. I've been running games in it and expanding it for the past 8 years and there is still so much of it to explore.
I've survived this long, lol. I keep getting back up like those inflatable clown punching bags. Really sick as a child, they thought I had myasthenia gravis but it went into remission. IDK if that's what it was, or if it was some other mystery autoimmune condition. As an adult I have celiac and Hashimoto's, so autoimmune conditions seem to just be my default. Had a spinal canal tumor which got removed. Then almost immediately they found an ovarian cyst the size of a golf ball, so I had surgery to get that whole mess removed. I have some chronic issues but I'm alive, healthy, relatively, own my home, and manage to take care of my pets. I've also managed to keep up with a hobby, finally. And I decided this year to finally get my master's. I know it's an academic accomplishment but I don't have the degree yet, it's just that I finally decided to get off my ass and better myself. Every time someone asks how I'm doing I reply, I'm alive. And they chuckle thinking I'm cracking a joke. I'm not. I am genuinely thankful to be alive.
Caring for my parents when they were dying.
I started working out in November with the goal of being able to pick up my Alaskan Malamute. He 8-year-old big boy, I'm 5'1" woman. As of last week, I can now lift and carry big boy. The way he looked at me afterwards, with that same face of puppy love and awe, made all the months of effort worth it. Former lapdog is lapdog once again.
Paid off student loans.
I saved a woman from a terrible man. It was St. Patrick's Day and I'd just gotten done with my bartending shift, so it was around 2 a.m. I was hungry, so I went to this really popular burrito place, one of the few places open at that time. Because of the holiday it was packed, drunk people clogging up the restaurant and spilling out into the street. As I walked up I noticed this guy making his way away from the crowd, caveman carrying a woman. She looked very drunk, but no one was paying much attention. As soon as they caught my eye, he stumbled and dropped her and she hit her head hard and then just laid there. He started to try and pick her up again and I ran over to stop him, since I was worried she'd hurt her neck. He was immediately defensive, and I just got this real bad vibe from him. She was conscious, but barely, and unintelligible. I asked him if she'd taken anything and he said no, so I said okay, well then I'm calling an ambulance because she can't even talk, and he said no, that's not from a head injury. He just remembered he'd given her some muscle relaxers cause her ankle was hurting, which is also why he was carrying her. He said his van was nearby and he'd just drive her home. I said, oh, so you're friends with her? And he said yeah, they were on a date. I asked what her name was and he said Jackie. Well, she had her wallet on her and I opened it up and it said an entirely different name, I think Samantha. I'm like, no way does he know her, and the whole time he's just pushing me to let him take her, saying that she wanted to go home with him, I should just mind my own business, she was fine, blah blah blah. Luckily at this point people at the restaurant are starting to notice, so I call over to ask if anyone can come help, if anyone had a medical background. A couple of girls start to come over and as soon as they do he gets real angry, tells me I'm a deadbeat and that he'd be coming back with his friends, and takes off. The girls, who were nurses, called an ambulance and waited with me, and I never saw that beep again. I shudder to think what would have happened if I hadn't looked over and seen him drop her.
I learned I was diabetic with a 10% A1C. Got that down to 5.0 in 6 months.
Slept for 12 hours in 2 hours.
I have 4 kids. Somehow they are all still alive, and I even occasionally get compliments on their behavior in public.
I bought a house.
It's nothing great, but I've been meditating for the past 6 days without missing a day. I've never been able to go past 2 days, so that's my most recent accomplishment.
Probably something parkour related. I did a 16-foot jump that was challenging. Pretty much threw myself at it as hard as I could and landed really well. Haven't done a jump like that since. Could have destroyed myself if I messed up the takeoff.
One time I went to Target and only bought the things I needed.
Finally accepted my appearance. The reduced amount of self-depreciating comments feels like such a relief. I feel we don't see the heaviness of them until we stop.
I won a local art competition in my city 4 years in a row when I was in high school.
I'm hard on myself, so it's important to my well-being that I make note of accomplishments, big or small. Here are a couple things I don't always view as accomplishments, even though they really are. Publishing a few original poems in various journals, developing a nice singing voice, learning how to cook fancy-ish things like homemade tikka masala or ratatouille.
Finishing a couple of marathons and 3 small, not Ironman, triathlons. I still have my marathon medals and triathlon race numbers tucked away. They are things I won't ever throw out, but I also don't display them as I don't need for everyone to see them. These races were for me.
I helped my friend avoid homelessness, got her out of prostitution. No offense to anyone who wants to do sex work, but it definitely wasn't what she wanted for herself. Helped her get a safe job with benefits, helped her get the mental health care she needed, helped her escape an abusive boyfriend several times, and more. Basically, I've helped people and been a really good friend, and that's all I really want for my life.
I overcame a metaphobia, phobia of vomiting that literally controlled and ruined my life for many years. Mental illnesses are hell.
Paid off student loans.
I ran a trail 50K once.
Giving up cigarettes after smoking 20 a day for 20 years.
The path of pain on Hollow Knight.
Does make it through the day count?
I hugged my dad.
Day hiking the Ohlone Wilderness Trail. 28 miles, 8,000 vertical gain overall. It was fun.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to subscribe to Upvote for the best quality content every day.